Hey everyone, this is Mr. Franzen. Bishop Brossard High School's Seek and Find ministry is a ministry aimed to seek students where they are in their faith and help them find Jesus in their life. We do this by providing faith-based media content and learning opportunities to help students deepen their faith. Right now, we are in the middle of releasing episodes of our series recapping the TV show, The Chosen. While we created this content with Brossard students in mind, adults will also relate to all of it. I recommend watching the season of The Chosen first, and then come back and enjoy the recap episodes. Now let's go ahead and get to the next episode. Thanks for listening. Jump into the next episode.
Gotcha.
Episode 7, titled Reckoning. So hold on to your thought. Let me give a quick summary of what's going on here. So at the beginning of the episode, we see Jesus is sought by the Romans for questioning. Jesus is in the middle of preparing for his next big sermon. This is going to be what's, of course, known as the Sermon on the Mount. And he's preparing the apostles for the why of this sermon. What makes this sermon so important is that each person who is going to be there. I mean, he's focusing on not what he's saying, but just that the people that are coming from all over the place. It's focusing on the people. And so they're coming because of the signs and wonders that they've been hearing about Jesus doing. But what Jesus is going to give them is a sermon of truth. And so it's going to be important for everybody to hear the truthfulness of his new rules, because that's essentially what's coming from the Sermon on the Mount. He's laying out a whole bunch of new rules. And we can get into more of that later when we actually get the sermon. We also see Andrew in his frustration at this point. He's mad at everybody.
He is still freaking out.
He's, first of all, in mourning because John the Baptist, one of his people he's really come to love, has been arrested, and he's worried about being hunted down as well. And it just builds. All the apostles were given these different roles to prepare for the sermon. Simon and Andrew are out fishing on a boat, and the Romans show up. And as the Romans show up to take him, he tells them all, don't be afraid. He tells them all, I'll be back.
Right.
Yet they can't get it amongst their heads that to just listen to him. They get freaked out, which is natural. They just saw their leader get taken away in handcuffs. So the apostles are arguing about what to do. Andrew is beside himself and storms off. And once again, they lose focus on what Jesus said. Andrew runs into, I think Philip is with him. Philip chases him. And they eventually find the Ethiopian woman preaching about Jesus in the street, along with the one he healed in the earlier episode. And so he's like even more panicked at this point, like, you need to be quiet. He's trying to silence her.
And that's when Joseph comes out hidden,
That's right.
not dressed as a Pharisee, hiding who he is to help this small group, saying you need to get her out of here, and you need to leave now because there are people looking for you, to question you, to build up the case against Jesus.
And the Ethiopian woman's name is Tamar. And so she officially joins them. And I think the one who is healed stays back. He says he'll lay low for a while.
Right. He thinks they should separate. So
he's trying to protect her, I think.
Right. Correct.
So Jesus willfully goes into custody, and there's this Quintus, the actor who does Quintus. Even though Quintus is not a real person in Scripture, the actor who does it is phenomenal.
Yeah,
so Jesus is questioned. Atticus is, of course, there. He just gets to observe anything he wants. He just shows up.
Probably eating an apple.
He stole grapes or olives.
Did.
He stole out of the bowl. He stole off his desk.
You're right. He's always eating. So Quintus is trying to figure out whether to be worried about Jesus or not. And he uses this analogy of a fish and bones. And I don't have the whole story. But the quote is he's trying to figure out whether to eat him or spit him out.
Right.
And Quintus warns him to basically stop creating spectacles. Jesus says he can't really promise anything. Quintus says, well, then I can't promise to let you keep breathing. And Jesus, in his humor, says, well, at least we are clear on what we can and cannot promise. Right. But Quintus lets him go, and so Jesus leaves and tells Atticus that Jesus will be a nice diversion for the people for a short time.
And he actually tells Atticus, I like him.
Yeah.
Right?
I like this guy. or he says, "I like you, Jesus of Nazareth."
Yeah, I like you.
You can tell Atticus, though, thinks that this isn't really the best route to go, because Atticus thinks this is going to turn into something more, yet I think he doesn't push Quintus to that point, because he kind of
wants to see what it is. He doesn't know what it is. And Atticus, just the way he tried to catch Z, wants to catch him in the act, which is kind of like every person who we ever talk to in our faith who may be on the fence. Why can't I see a miracle? I want to see it. Why doesn't he help me? There's a lot of people who just want to see the act. They want to see the signs and wonder, which Jesus slowly is telling his apostles. It's not all about the signs and wonder. Can't do that for everyone. If they just believe me because of signs and wonder, then they're not true believers.
Which is also why, which we can't talk about it yet, but little James has a cool moment about the healing that he was questioning earlier. So in the midst of all of the apostles arguing about how, and Z once again is saying we can break him out of jail. Andrew is now coming at Mary Magdalene, saying that this is your fault. I don't know. There's a lot of finger pointing, and they're starting to take sides again.
They're trying to read through what he said, read through the lines. Maybe it was a cipher, as he says when he said, "Wait here, I will be back." Maybe he really meant that we should go and break him out to get him.
Yes, exactly.
There's a lot of questioning as to what did he imply.
And so it's not until that night Jesus eventually comes back, and he says, "Sorry, first I was praying."
Right.
And they get mad. They're like, "What do you mean?
What are you?
You didn't
dare
get to
you
come tell us you were okay?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "I told you I'd be back."
Yeah.
And then it leads to a cool moment.
Beautiful moment.
Simon asks him to teach them how to pray, and he gives them the Our Father.
Because they were supposed to be like prepping for the sermon.
Right, they're
while
supposed
they
to
were
be getting
gone.
ready for the next. They didn't do anything.
And he says, you can't just shut down when you feel fearful. What are you going to do when I'm no longer here?
Yeah.
And then he said, prayer is the first step to getting the mind and heart right. That's why you see me go to it so often.
And then when, I think I wrote it down, when Simon asks, teach us to pray, he says to them, now you are acting like true students.
Yeah.
This is the first step.
It foreshadows a lot with Simon gets something right.
Yeah.
He gets a lot wrong.
Right,
but
right.
those moments he gets something right, it's powerful. And Jesus really kind of over confirms him in a way, like in the sense that he's like, now be like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mr. Crazy passionate person, I want you to steer that passion towards righteousness, not towards bitter grudges you're holding against Matthew.
Yeah.
So it's cool. And so we said this is called reckoning.
Correct.
Which why do you think this is called reckoning? I guess it's building up a couple of stories here. You've got the Pharisees thinking like they want to take Jesus down, but at the same time, Jesus is saying that we're going to be dealing with this situation in the future. It's not my time yet. That's why he was telling the apostles, don't worry. I don't know. I don't really know.
Or I guess it could be a reckoning that the apostles come to understand this is all going to be scary. It's all going to be overwhelming, but we're not here to fight. It's them coming to the conclusion. I reckon with the idea. Now I get it. Mm-hmm. You are going to be taken from us. He doesn't tell them that, but he's leading them to say, when I'm not here, you can't be fearful.
Yeah.
You got to know. So slowly, over time, they're going to come to reckoning this idea and understanding it.
Right. Any other thoughts?
So the Wadi Quelt, this little teeny tiny town, where he healed the withered man's hand. It was far away from Jerusalem, and it was, remember, in another episode when these two men from that synagogue come to report their thing, Atticus talks about, or somebody says, oh, that town, they don't even follow the rules. Like their Pharisees do their own thing. They're so far removed that it's almost scary to go in that town because the Jewish law is Jewish law, 613-fold. So that tells me that people are getting in trouble all the time in that town. Or people are moving away and it's this tiny little, I mean, if we think about that, every weird little, like my wife's from West Virginia. I joke with her that she's from West Virginia, right? Oh, West Virginia, blah, blah, blah. There's a horrible horror movie. And when I say horrible, not that it's scary, horrible, that's the stupidest movie ever called Wrong Turn. And it's about these little hillbilly people in West Virginia who don't like outsiders and just kill them because they don't agree with them. And some of them eat them, they're cannibals. But Quadi Quelt, like I Googled it and was like, this is a real place. So it talks that it was a valley between two mountain chains, all right? But it's used so much in the Bible because at two ends of the valley, one is Jerusalem and one is Jericho. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we have what's righteous on one side, and we have Jericho the other side, which we hear a couple bad stories. There's some bad things that happen in Jericho, right? So this whole valley is called Wadi Quelt, but it also has a tiny town in it called Wadi Quelt. This valley now has a beautiful monastery, which was built in, I want to say, the 300s or whatever, called St. George's Monastery by the Greek Orthodox. It houses Elijah. It's where Elijah preached from. And it houses the relics of St. Anne and St. Joachim. Oh. Okay, and in this valley is always been called the Valley of the Shadow of Death. Psalm 23 is written from this valley. The fact that you can leave Jericho and you're walking away from God, Jerusalem, and walking away from God, you are exposing yourself to death. And Wadi Quelt was considered to be at that time this one place that you would not go. Wow. Like so far out there, the only people who live there are the people from there. That's wild. And Jesus takes his apostles there to fix the withered hand and to steal grain. I know they're not stealing in Jesus' mind, right. But he's stirring up the water. He's basically saying, we're going there. That's the place. The apostles don't know what's going on there, but there's a reason this place is picked. There's something creepy about, again, the writers are amazing when they do this. Yeah. They're pulling in all these little teeny tiny aspects of stuff that is just incredible the way they've written it together.
I totally missed that. That's awesome.
Yeah, that is really cool.
What psalm was it that you said?
Psalm 23.
Psalm 23, is that?
Walk through the valley of the shadow of death.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the BBHS Seek and Find podcast. If you like what you heard, please like and share with a friend. Be sure to subscribe to all of our social media. You can follow us on Instagram and YouTube at BBHS.SeekandFind. You can also follow us on Facebook at Bishop Russer High School Seek and Find Ministry. Once again, thanks for listening, and may God bless you today.